Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you've been anywhere near the NBA lately, you know we are basically standing in the wreckage of what might be the most chaotic, landscape-altering offseason in modern basketball history. I mean, the 2026 NBA draft and free agency didn't just shuffle the deck, they threw the entire deck out the window. We're talking unprecedented player movement, brilliant strategic masterstrokes, and, well, a few front offices that completely fumbled the bag.
Seriously, just look at these names. LeBron James leaves LA. Giannis Antetokounmpo traded to Miami. Kawhi Leonard actually returning to Toronto. Jaylen Brown and Paul George swapping bitter rival jerseys. These are literal tectonic shifting moves that have completely rewritten the league's hierarchy. Okay, let's dive into this and figure out exactly how and why all of this happened.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll unpack the chaotic offseason, then hit draft masterminds, blockbuster gambles, fumbling the bag, the Wemby center boom, and finally, looking ahead.
All right, jumping right into part one, the chaotic offseason, math and madness.
You know, the new collective bargaining agreement was originally designed to prevent teams from recklessly spending by allowing them to offer massive 140% extensions to keep their stars. But, wild enough, it actually had the exact opposite effect. Instead of tying players down, these strict financial barriers basically turned extension eligibility dates into de facto trade deadlines. Teams are looking at the crushing weight of the second apron and deciding, yeah, we'd rather trade our massive stars than pay them. It's a total paradigm shift.
Moving on to part two, masterminds of the draft, acing the assignment.
So, some teams just totally aced their assignments on draft night. Take a look at the Memphis Grizzlies, grabbing a solid A+ by drafting Cameron Boozer at number 3. They're pairing the most productive player in college hoops with Zach Edey, which is a frankly terrifying front court. And then you've got the Washington Wizards taking A.J. Dybantsa at number 1. Dybantsa is a potential 1A alpha scorer who instantly raises the ceiling of their entire rebuild.
But the absolute masterclass here, that belongs to Sam Presti and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And the craziest part is they didn't even have to trade up to get exactly what they needed. They landed the 7'3" Ade Mara, literally dubbed the Wemby stopper, at number 12, adding elite rim protection right next to Chet Holmgren. Then they grabbed a highly productive guard in Bennett Sturts and a downhill slasher in Otega Owe. They masterfully filled their defensive needs with cost-controlled pieces for a roster that, mind you, was already in the Western Conference Finals. Just brilliant execution.
Which brings us to Section 3, blockbuster gambles, high-stakes trades.
We absolutely have to talk about this astonishing swap between bitter rivals. The Sixers receive a 29-year-old All-NBA sledgehammer in Jaylen Brown. Meanwhile, the Celtics acquire Paul George, plus 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks. Truly wild stuff.
It begs the ultimate question, right? Who actually won this whole thing? Now, on paper, Philly gets the younger, better player. But analysts have been quick to point out that Brown's high-usage, kind of volatile play style might heavily clash with Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. Brown likes to hold and shoot the ball, which could honestly stunt their offense. Boston, on the other hand, cleverly stacked up massive draft capital and financial flexibility, setting themselves up perfectly for future moves while still being a major contender.
And that brings us to another massive gamble that honestly looks like a match made in heaven, Kawhi Leonard returning to Toronto. The Raptors traded Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick for Kawhi, and the numbers here just completely tell the story. The Raptors ranked first overall in transition frequency last year, and Kawhi, he ranked second in the entire league in fast break points per 100 possessions. It's a totally seamless fit that turns a good team into a terrifying playoff matchup.
All right, shifting gears to Section 4, fumbling the bag, front office disasters. You know that sound of a record scratching? Yeah, that's pretty much the exact feeling of watching the Washington Wizards this offseason. Let's look at a couple of the most puzzling moves across the league. First, you have the Phoenix Suns recklessly surrendering an unprotected first-round pick for an overpaid Miles Bridges, which has been heavily criticized as a massive overpay for an average power forward. But the Wizards? Well, right after drafting a pure alpha scorer in Dybantsa, they turned around and acquired the ultimate ball-dominant guard in Trae Young.
And here's the absolutely staggering reality of that Wizards trade. $57 million. That is what Trae Young is going to be making in 3 years when he's on the wrong side of 30. He'll be eating up 30% of the Wizards' cap space. So instead of keeping their flexibility to build around their new 19-year-old franchise player, they basically tied a massive financial anchor right around their own ankles.
But hey, Washington isn't alone in the disaster class. Let's look at the Lakers.
Rob Pelinka, finally free of LeBron's salary and sitting on max-level cap space to build around Luka Doncic, inexplicably surrendered really valuable trade chips just to acquire an unproven center in Walker Kessler via a sign-and-trade.
The total amount the Lakers spent this offseason? Try $460 million. They literally spent the whole shebang. And this perfectly highlights a vital lesson of the new CBA. A massive payroll doesn't automatically buy you a championship-caliber roster. Throwing money at the wall just to appease your star can leave you completely depleted of the assets you'll actually need down the line.
This leads us right into Section 5, the Wemby Center Boom, hoarding 7-footers.
Hartenstein, Robinson, Williams III, Porzingis, Nurkic getting $22 million from Utah, Brook Lopez getting his option picked up. I mean, even totally average centers secured the bag this cycle. Why? Because every single front office in the Western Conference, and frankly the whole league, is absolutely terrified. It all boils down to this perfectly captured sentiment from our source analysis. Want to win it all? You would better not find yourself in a playoff series against the San Antonio Spurs without plenty of size to throw at Victor Wembanyama. The mere threat of facing the Spurs in the playoffs has caused the market rate for big men to completely skyrocket. Teams are literally hoarding 7-footers just for the chance to slow down Wemby. It is wild to see one single player warp the entire league's economy like this.
Finally, Section 6, looking ahead. The season begins.
Amid all this chaos, there are some teams that just quietly, brilliantly set themselves up for an incredibly fun season. Look at the Charlotte Hornets. GM Jeff Peterson executed a masterclass of a reset. He knew exactly when to cash out on LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges, securing 2 unprotected firsts and 3 swaps. He shed massive contracts, added really great rotational pieces like Naz Reid and Grayson Allen, and cleared the floor for the historic shooter Con Knuble. They are young, they are fun, and they are perfectly positioned for the future. On the flip side of that LaMelo trade, we've got the Timberwolves. Now, Minnesota definitely sacrificed crucial frontcourt depth by losing Randall and Reed. But by pairing Anthony Edwards with an elite, fast-paced playmaker like LaMelo Ball, they are going to unlock Ant's efficiency like never before. They might be a bit smaller, but they are going to be absolute dynamite to watch on offense. And that, my friends, brings us to the ultimate question as we head into the new season. Will these unprecedented, massive financial gambles actually result in a championship for these daring front offices? Or is the crushing, unforgiving weight of the second apron going to tear these super teams apart by 2027? The board is set, the pieces have moved, and the most chaotic season in NBA history is just about to begin. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes on the hardwood. It's going to be a wild ride.